Albert was dead inside.
The world-famous nationalist band Screwdriver produced a record called Sixth Society in remembrance of Albert. Albert Mariner was a gifted artist. He hand-painted the Tower Hamlets branch banner which depicted Tower Bridge. When the branch switched allegiance to the BNP in 1986, the banner was adapted or amended into a BNP banner and was proudly taken on many meetings and marches where it took pride of place. For a few years around 1986, the annual wreath laying at Albert's grave on the anniversary of his death became a competitive event between various nationalist groups created out of the splits and internal schisms of that time. Each group endeavoured to show that it was the true or genuine upholder of the traditions and nationalist spirit that Albert personified. This soon dissipated, and the only people who maintain Albert's grave now are his old colleagues from Tower Hamlets who are now in the BNP.
And what happened to the inquiry?
Like other branches, Tower Hamlets had the usual round of regular branch meetings. But unlike other units of the BNP, it also engaged in numerous local by-elections, during which tactics were refined. Here's Steve Smith, the candidate in a by-election in Park Ward in Bow, when we tried detailed canvassing for the first time in 1990. This is York Hall in Bethnal Green. It's best known as a boxing venue, but in the early 1990s the BNP held 3 highly successful rallies here, 2 in support of election campaigns and 1 annual rally. Here we are back at Bethnal Green Tube Station, but this time under happier circumstances. From this location, through local initiative, the British National Party's first Rights for Whites march set off back in 1990. The march started at Paradise Row, which is a lane behind the bushes that could be seen next to the shop with the blue frontage. Paradise Row, interestingly enough, is mentioned in the famous music hall song On Mother Kelly's Doorstep. The march was held as a protest following the near-fatal stabbing of a schoolboy, John Stoner, in Morpeth School in Bethnal Green. This stabbing was a blatant racial attack carried out by a gang of Bangladeshis and took place in a classroom. The local community was outraged, but the police, school authorities and the local council refused to take any action to apprehend the culprits. Then as now, they are more interested in pandering to the ethnic population than in simple law and order. We leafleted the neighbourhood and worked with the family involved in the run-up to the march, which passed off entirely peacefully. We held 2 marches in the area on this issue and didn't let the matter die down unnoticed. The marches successfully mobilised the local community. Women with children, pensioners, families and youngsters all turned up to march under the BNP's Rights for Whites banner. I thought it would be interesting at this stage to look at some of the branch archives which I've dug out of the Tower Hamlets Branch Museum. This here is looks like the touring shroud. It's actually my original campaign map for Tower Hamlets with all the wards on it. It's about getting on for 25 years old. Here's the very first election leaflet I did, which was in Bethnal Green in, well, as it says there, 1984, for a candidate called Ray Bradford. And that I've got quite a few souvenirs from that. That's the pass to the count for that election. We did a public election meeting. We did our own little local leaflet advertising a public election meeting. Even got the nominated persons form still. Another little poster we put up for the public meeting. This is when I was in the NF, of course. And I've kept the minuscule amount of publicity that we actually managed to generate in those days for our campaigns. This is a bulletin. That's a sort of branch bulletin we used to do way back then. I've done even 1983, that is. And that's a 1985 one. And this is the second election we did in St Dunstan's ward. It's the same ward where that church was that we in St Dunstan's Church, where we saw at the very beginning of the film, in that area, and we did quite well actually in that campaign. We were always trying to improve our election technique and trying different things to get better results. This by-election that we held in I can't even remember who it was. It was in the latter part of the 80s, the very end of the 80s. We did these bog standard leaflets, just trying to get the candidate's name across. This is what we thought was the best. I mean, we had a public meeting for that one. We did all sort of homemade leaflets, photocopied up and cut out like that. It's very faint. We didn't do very well in that election at all. That was in Lansbury Ward, just here in Poplar. By the early 90s, we moved over to our Rights for Whites campaigns. This is actually a bit of a historic document. It's the very first Rights for Whites leaflet we did before that march that we just saw. It was actually a sheet of photocopied paper, very simply done and handed out. That wasn't actually for the march, that was just advertising the issue. The first march leaflet was done like that, very simple, with a felt pen over the top. We didn't even use Letraset. Computers were rare in those days, so you couldn't produce such good documents. And the only people that produced good quality leaflets were flashy organisations. We wanted to seem to be a community group that grew out the streets. So that's exactly why felt pen, simple look, was actually the most effective look. This one's even more scruffy, but it's for the same activity. And that's for the second Rights for Whites march. The same style, and these actually, you may think they look rubbish, but they actually achieved the results we wanted. We didn't just do 2 marches, although there's another, that's for the second march as well. We obviously handed out 2 leaflets for that one. We also did campaigns for schools where there was problems in schools. We did campaigns for old people. These are all activities that had little demonstrations and leafleting in their areas. That's advertising people to come to one of those public meetings I referred to in York Hall. And that's another more professional one, professionally produced one. That's for a school public meeting for a different by-election. There's another one of our campaigns in Bethnal Green about racial problems and housing there. And even one here which we handed out down at Brick Lane, where our paper sale was. Started producing branch bulletins like this, lengthier newsletters that covered all the local issues as we became more and more community orientated. This is British Nationalist, which used to be the name of the party's newspaper. Now it's the name of the party's members' bulletin. This is a particularly important issue. Dealt with a big annual rally we held in York Hall. There's the stage and all the flags. And in the middle pages, there's a big spread about there's a very big rally we held in York Hall. And I believe this one featured another big rally we held in York Hall. As I said, we were able to get that venue, the most prestigious venue in the East End at the time. Going back to the elections, we used to hand out little simple slips like this at the polling stations. That's that one where Steve Smith stood in Park Ward in Bow, which is over here. And we used to hand out little slips like that on polling day to remind voters to vote for us. Each time our campaign was getting more and more sophisticated. We devised this was the design of our election address at that time. That was the sort of design we had, and it was very popular at the time. These are other elections as we progressed further. We got more different types of leaflets. We had better slips to hand out on polling day, always with the Rights for Whites theme. We were maintaining the community theme all the way through it. as I said, we're getting better results every time. We're getting on the doors.